middle of all this, there's a lot of criticism of the FDA possibly going too quickly with some of these treatments and potentially not looking at all the risks involved.
Lawsuit accuses several big-name companies of flooding the market with powerful painkillers and making false claims about the risk of addiction.
Elsa Carter popped her first painkiller at 12 and was shooting up OxyContin by 16. It almost always would be for 30 pills or more. Any less, and the patient might not get addicted. Doctors would receive a financial cut for every prescription.
The pandemic is devastating the very fiber of this country.
First time in more than 20 years, the life expectancy for Americans is declining, and scientists believe a wide range of health problems are to blame, and 28% higher than reported due to incomplete death records after fatal overdoses, not mentioning which drug was actually involved.
The FDA approved this drug. Why should we, the pharmaceutical companies, be held responsible?
They're getting away with murder. Pharma has a lot of lobbyists and a lot of power.
They don't even mention the untold number of deaths which have occurred here.
My mom was a great mom. She came to our sporting events when she wasn't sick, when she wasn't in the hospital. I couldn't have asked for a better mom. The only thing I would ask is for more time with her. We had to clean out all my mom's stuff, go through all of her things, and I found, she called it an overnight case that she always kept with her. And I remember opening it and seeing all these medications, these pill bottles, it was just full. And I started pulling them out one by one and counting. And I realized my mom passed away at the age of 47 years old, taking 21 prescription medications. It just didn't work. So knowing that my mom only lived 47 years doing everything that she was told, taking every medication she was given, there's something not right in our healthcare system. I have to think we're missing something. There's gotta be a better way.
We know that America makes up less than 5% of the world population, yet Americans consume more than 50% of prescribed drugs worldwide. How's that possible? We spend more money per capita in the United States than any country in the world. Our genes as a human species have not changed for over 5,000 years. Why are we getting sicker? Even more so in the last 50 to 100 years.
We tend to think that we have the best healthcare system in the world. The reality of it is we do not have the best healthcare system in the world. In fact, we are ranked 40th when it comes to life expectancy. We are ranked 44th in infant mortality compared to other countries. That's a terrible statistic.
I can tell you I never thought I would get to a day where I came to practice and I saw children on 5, 6, 7 medications. People in their 50s and 60s on 19, 20, 21 medications every single day. And we start talking about surgery they've had. There's a list of surgeries they've had, like they've had for breakfast items or something. It's like, it literally is massive.
Mental illness is mounting. Pain problems and syndromes are mounting. Autoimmunity is mounting. Infantile seizures and spasms is mounting. Worldwide, hypertension is the leading cause of death of mankind.
It's common that this happens, but it's not normal. Being overweight in our country is a common problem. However, it's not normal to be overweight. And sometimes we confuse the two of common versus normal. And so we just got to understand normal is feeling great, living life abundantly, being at your best, not feeling any symptoms in your body.
I realized that what happened to my mom wasn't uncommon. That we're seeing more and more sick and suffering people here in America. It's actually getting worse. Up to 70% of American adults suffer with a chronic disease.
When you look at overall just the statistics of how fast the number of people who are addicted to pain medications, diabetes medications, the number of people on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, these numbers are just growing, continuing to grow. I'm just thinking about right now what the future looks like if we don't change the way our healthcare system is set up today. And what's going to continue to happen is we're going to see rates of autoimmune disease continue to rise. We're going to see rates of cancer. We're going to see rates of diabetes go through the roof. We're going to have a country that's full of addicts and full of people that are in such chronic pain, and we're going to bankrupt our country. And I think for me, that's proof that what we're doing is not working.
You really can't wait for the system to catch up. Maybe you can, depending on what your patience looks like, but a fifth of the whole pie of the United States GDP is being spent on illness. The reality is, it's kind of sobering, is that if everyone just suddenly got well tomorrow, it would be an economic catastrophe.
I traveled around the country to interview some of the most admired healthcare professionals, and their insights were vital for me to be able to find out what happened to my mom, and not just my mom, but all the other people in America who suffer from a broken healthcare system. People are being conditioned to take a pill to cover up their symptom. It wasn't just a health problem, it was a social norm. And this type of thinking is what led to the largest drug epidemic in the history of the human race: opioids.
After 9/11/2001, I realized that I needed to do something. I've always wanted to be a soldier, and I've been very fortunate that I was able to fulfill that dream. I was the third truck in the convoy, and my Humvee literally erupted. 700 pounds of explosives buried in the road, and I lost 3 soldiers. I knew that I had been hurt, I just had no idea how bad at this point. I remember looking over and my uniform was melted into my skin. I looked down and my body armor was on fire, and the flames almost looked me in the face as I looked down. We get to the hospital. Apparently, at that point, I was medically induced into a coma that I spent the next 48 days in. So when I came out of that coma, one day I finally said, "What do I look like?" And somebody took a picture of me and showed me on their phone. And it was a very bitter pill to swallow. I was like, damn, I used to be a good looking guy. You know, and I'm trying to look on the bright side of this. I couldn't accept it at first. I felt like my life was over. The pain medication that I was on was a lot, because the pain that I was having to endure was probably more than my body could handle. The sad truth about that, though, is that after a year and a half or more on those medications, I became addicted to them naturally. And it was extremely hard for me to fight that opioid and this want and need at the same time. I mean, I had withdrawals so bad one time that I felt like if I could put my feet through the floor of the car to make the car go faster like Fred Flintstone, that I could do it. I figured, I mean, mentally, I thought I could do it. You know, there's a cognitive side of me going, you can't do that. You know, but I mean, I'm really feeling like I feel so much of a craving that I think I can do it. It makes you think crazy. I had to carry a backpack with my meds. And it seemed like one pill counteracted this pill, which counteracted that pill, which counteracted that pill. And it just seemed to be this vicious cycle of medication because you're on medication. And so, it was just this chemical cocktail waiting to explode, in a sense. So, how did I get there?
So she asks, how would you rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst? Well, saying a low number isn't going to help you. So I said, I guess I'm an 8. She goes, oh, okay, I'll be back. I'm like, oh, I blew it, man. But she surprised me. She comes in, she goes, the doctor told me to give you morphine immediately. All I know is about 15 minutes later, just for the hell of it, I was like, I'm an 8 again.
What we know about opioids is they are a very strong, potent medication given for pain. Opioids, what they do is they change the receptors in the brain. And so when you start to change receptors, what that means is you need more of the substance to get the same result, which makes them more addictive. And so one of the things that I look at often is, what are the numbers? More money is spent on pain alone than cancer and heart disease combined. The other one is that 63.4% of opioid users initially began because they had some sort of pain. Another one that's so crazy, every 25 minutes in the United States alone, a baby is born addicted to opioid drugs. And it costs our culture $50,000 on average to rehab them, which is at a price tag of $1.5 billion every year, all because that mother got addicted and then had a child because it's going through the same bloodstream, was then born with the opioid withdrawal. A baby. And the biggest and most scary statistic today is that you have a greater chance at dying from an opioid drug than you do a motor vehicle accident. Let me say it again. You have a greater risk of dying from an opioid drug than you do a car accident.
Painkillers and heroin. Hey, think about overdoses. A lot of people tragically die of car accidents, and we spend a lot of time and a lot of resources to reduce those fatalities. And the good news is that we've actually been very successful. The problem is here, we've got the trajectory going in the opposite direction. You see an enormous ongoing spike in the number of people who are using opioids in ways that are unhealthy, and you're seeing a significant rise in the number of people who are being killed.
We're seeing a massive issue with opioid addiction, to the point now that when we're looking at overdose rates of just drug overdoses within the United States, 2/3 of them are related to opioids. That is ridiculous.
I worked in the pediatric emergency department for several years, and one of the things that I've noticed is I saw repeatedly children coming in for repeated IV sticks, repeated hospitalizations, narcotic dependency. And those are things to where you're seeing these children constantly and chronically being given morphine, to where their pain scale is just escalated to where they're coming in and you have to take their pain for what it is because they're seriously going through these crises. But as a professional, you're just like, you're giving them morphine, you're giving them these medications, and you're just like, they're gonna build dependence after being on this for several years.
Everybody is being taught that, hey, listen, if you got a fever, you got to have a fever reducer. You got an infection, it takes an antibiotic. You got high blood pressure, you better take the drug. But more medicalized we get as a society, are we getting better or are we getting worse? Are we getting healthier or are we getting more sick?
We're just
so infatuated with going faster and doing things on the fly. And if we take that paradigm and then apply it to health, it's how can I get healthy faster, right? Like, how can I lose weight faster? How can I get out of pain faster? We're gonna grab the things that's the fastest, and that isn't in alignment with exercise and proper eating and teaching our kids from the mindset to be healthy.
To me, because you have pain doesn't mean that pain needs to be eliminated. So they have pain and they're like, oh, because I have pain, I gotta get rid of it. Or they expect that because they have pain, all pain should be eliminated. Now, I'm not saying somebody should be in an immense amount of pain, but there is just the pain of life, right? And so our society, because of multiple reasons, has gotten to a point to where we can't really cope with the pains. And that could be physical pain, it could be mental pain, but these pains we want to eliminate instead of manage.
Over the last few decades, opioids have been marketed as a solution to a problem, but now they've become a major problem.
They are seeking millions of dollars to pay for the treatment for the girl lay there and feel the pain.
We're headed down a path that if we don't do something soon, we may not be able to come back from. And the fact is that even the strongest of men are not immune to this crisis.
Number 60, Christopher Zano.
Let's start in 1998. Right, that's best. So in 1998, I won Mr. America, and I looked a certain way. I felt a certain way. And to me, health was that, right? I was paid to give people nutrition plans. I was paid to show them exercise routines. And then a few years later, I just started going to the bathroom a lot. It's like no big deal, right? So I thought, here I'm probably 26 years old at the time. Then I started bleeding every time I went to the bathroom. So that was the tough day when you start to see blood in the toilet bowl. Being young, it's like things just kind of went away, but this wasn't. And then the TJ Maxx day, as I call it. So my TJ Maxx day was, I did my usual routine. I would scope out where the bathrooms were, just in case, and I went there and the bathrooms were locked. So now I'm going to panic mode. I have that anxiety, and I'm trying to walk out of there. I'm like, what happens if I go to the bathroom? There's no bathroom here, and all that anxiety, then you have to go even more. And then that was the first time of many where right then and there, in front of 40 people, I lost my bowels in public, in front of everybody. And it kind of came to me, what came on my life? Mr. America, top of the field in what I did, looked away a certain way. Now I'm reduced to nothing, literally shitting my pants in public. And we went to the hospital, and that was the day I was diagnosed with an incurable terminal disease called ulcerative colitis. And what this is it's an autoimmune disease where your immune system is literally attacking yourself. My immune system was eating my colon from the inside out. He said it was incurable and terminal. Terminal wasn't like next week, but it's like, you're gonna die from this. And they put me on a lot of drugs, such as prednisone, which is the nastiest drug out there. The prednisone gave me anxiety, so I was on Xanax and Valium, which later I became addicted to. And then I was put on a drug called Asacol. And because your liver takes up 3/4 of the right side of your abdomen, the Asacol damaged my liver enzymes so bad, I got medically induced hepatitis. Their method wasn't helping. And so I went to Dallas, Texas, Baylor Medical over there. They put me on Remicade, which is an infusion for autoimmune disease, interferon shots for the medically induced hepatitis, then organ rejection medication. Do you see what's going on? Like they're trying to shut off valves, turn on valves, and when you turn on one, you cause another problem.
Right. So did that stop it from getting worse?
No. I continue to get worse. But now, what do I do? Right. I mean, I checked off all the boxes of all the things to do, but there was one box that had to be checked off that was the final box, and the final box was to remove your colon. Not part of it. Some people get part of it. It was the whole colon. So they told me, listen, you're gonna have a gaping hole at the right side of your abdomen for the rest of your life. You're gonna have a colostomy bag. It'll break, it'll leak, it'll get infected. They said you'll be on $6,000 worth of medication for the rest of your life. And then it started getting really bad. They said, listen, also you're sterile. You'll be able to have children, so adoption may be in your future. So this is the option I had in front of me. I made sure I took the meds when they told me to. I made sure I did everything they told me to, so I could say I did everything.
You wanted to get well.
I wanted to get well. I'm alive, and I don't know what dying feels like, but that was the closest I felt to this is what dying feels like.
We think that taking a drug has only one effect. But the reality is you cannot take a drug without having it influence every aspect of our body, right? The liver has to detoxify it, the kidneys have to, clean it out to make sure it doesn't get deeper, the digestive system is digesting it and getting to the areas that it needs to go in. You can't have a knee pain and take a pain medication for that knee pain to have that knee pain go away without it affecting your digestive tract. In fact, your digestive lining will have small, minuscule bleeding occur from that drug that you just took. It may actually get rid of the pain, but the question becomes at what cost?
I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I've had almost 60 surgeries. I'm done. This was 3 years after my injury. I can't, keep taking this medication like that, but I'm still in surgery. I pretty much wasn't taking anything except for every now and then I would take some of the opioids as I needed them. Started doing pretty good. I was still dealing with pain, but unfortunately, I'm driving down the interstate one day and I get rear-ended by a semi-truck. I had fought so hard to get off a lot of those medications, and boom, I'm in so much pain, I'm throwing up again. Well, I finally go to an orthopedic doctor, and he's showing me my CAT scans, my x-rays, and my neck is a mess. My back is a mess. And he's like, surgery is probably imminent. I did not want to hear that. And I said, what about chiropractic? And he said, I wouldn't recommend it, because if there's a doctor that doesn't really know what they're doing, you have so many pinched nerves in your neck that they could hurt you. I was like, okay, well, that's not great news. Well, I rocked on there, still living with the pain, still on the opioids, and I'm drinking, trying to compensate because I'm depressed. My life was really dark, and I can't even remember there being much joy in my life at that time. I literally walked by the mirror one day, and it was like there was somebody else walked by the mirror. And I went back and I looked, and I had this just pot belly, and my arms were, real frail looking, and I was thinking, who is that? And I went up there and I got closer to the mirror and I was looking in my eyes, and there was nothing there. It was like soulless almost. I don't remember my wife leaving that morning. I don't remember my kids saying bye or hi or anything. And it was a really, really dark day. And I was thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. I went back to my closet, and I got my pistol. And I stood there in front of the mirror, and I put the pistol to my head. And I was like, I'm done. I could hear my dad saying, "Are you done?" And I could visualize my children, and I'm like, the pain and everything that they would have to endure after everything that we had already been through. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm not a coward. I'm a better man than that.
Tell us what happened.
Well, the pregnancy was tough. Ethan actually ended up in the birth canal at 24 weeks. And so as he grew, he was growing in my bones, which caused him to have torticollis when he was born. When he was a year and a half, Ethan started having seizures. I came home from work one day, and family had him. And luckily they had taken video of him having the seizures because I had never witnessed Ethan going through any of that. So the second that they played those videos for me, my heart sank. In the office, Ethan had 4 seizures. While we were there. He's always kind of had that white coat syndrome. He was in an uncomfortable situation, which obviously triggers him. He was not having like a grand mal seizure. They were more like he would just kind of droop his head down and kind of go away.
Ethan, little buds.
That had been hard to watch.
It's the first time we had seen one. The neurologist said that he would not let us leave his office without putting him on anti-seizure medication. He put him on Keppra, a very low amount. I was told that it's very, very safe. One of the mildest anti-seizure medications. The medication made Ethan very emotional. He cried constantly. He was kind of zoned out, like he just wasn't there. You can just see it in his face. He was gone. It is really the only way I can explain it. And it completely took his appetite away. I couldn't even get him to drink a bottle. So we felt like it was something he had to be on, but after a week on the medication, your kid's not even the same. He told us that he did not believe Ethan was having seizures and that it was more of a behavioral problem.
Really?
He just said, kids will be kids. He's just acting out. He'll outgrow it. So I again said, do you need to look at the videos again? Because I'm thinking, did he get him confused with another child? And he looked at them again and he stood his ground. And actually we were told that until he has a 3-minute seizure, I don't need to contact him again.
Really?
I wanted to scream. He had seen him have 4 in the office. I definitely felt a lot of it was about money because they wanted 3 more EEGs by the end of the year. Why? You tell me you don't need me to call you. I don't need to have another appointment, but he still wanted 3 EEGs just to make sure that nothing was changing.
Yeah.
He's not willing to help you. Get him off the medicine, let him just be. And you're just left. What do you do?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only was Ethan not being treated, but his conditions were blatantly ignored by his doctor. He was so insistent of putting Ethan on all these medications, despite the consequences. I had to ask a question at this point. Were the doctor's intentions really to help Ethan? And then it hit me. What if our healthcare system's not only broken, but it was designed to be that way?
We don't have what I would call a healthcare system. We have a disease care system. And you can really trace it all back to money. Money doesn't change hands when someone gets well. In fact, the flow of money in this system pretty much slows down to a trickle. Money changes hands when we get sick.
I think it's purposely broken, right? It's broken to benefit a certain segment. We diagnose diseases and we assign them a code. But now for each diagnostic code, there's a protocol. All of those treatments are generally going to be pharmaceutical because that's what's considered treatment. And so the system is set up so that the only possible legitimate treatment is pharmaceutical. And so if the pharmaceutical companies that get their product into that standard protocol, it's money. They have a monopoly on medical care.
What we started seeing then, as we transitioned into the 90s, was the big pharmaceutical companies really trying to educate the public, to let them know about new diseases that they thought we all needed drugs for. And so one of the things that we started seeing were opioids being prescribed almost like candy, right and left to people. And we were told at that time period there would not be that addictive nature.
Some patients may be afraid of taking opioids because they're perceived as too strong or addictive. but that is far from actual fact.
They do not have serious medical side effects, and so these drugs should be used much more than they are.
I believe our society has been manipulated by marketers. And because we have been manipulated by marketers, we have lost the ability to think. We cannot take this lightly because the health of our children, our families are at stake. Listen, drugs are dangerous. Drugs are dangerous. They are not candy. Tylenol is not candy. Statin drugs are not candy. Opioid drugs are not candy. These are dangerous drugs. So when you watch these, I call them flying people drug ads, where it's like, take this pill and you'll fly.
This is big. A chance to live longer with Opdivo, nivolumab.
La-di-da, and then you hear,
Opdivo can cause your immune system to attack normal organs and tissues in your body and affect how they work. This may happen anytime during or after treatment has ended and may become serious and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you experience new or worsening cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, diarrhea, severe stomach pain or tenderness, severe nausea or vomiting, extreme fatigue, constipation, excessive thirst or urine, swollen
close
ankles,
your
loss of
eyes
appetite.
if you're watching those things and listen. Don't be distracted by the visuals. Listen and then make decisions and realize that you are being marketed to. It is time that we take this seriously and think.
Educate yourself and start looking at what are the statistics, what are the possible ramifications of these chemicals. And here's the deal. Every single statistic that you read, the person's life who is represented in that statistic, they didn't think it was going to happen to them. Same thoughts you have right now. You don't think it's going to happen to you. You don't think it's going to happen to your child, but it does. And regret is a huge burden to carry. Don't let that be you.
We're gonna have to wake up as a society if we're gonna fix this healthcare crisis. We can't have patients coming in and telling the doctor what they need to be taking. The doctor needs to make the best decision based on the diagnostics that they found on this patient in order to give them the best possible care.
Listen, I don't bring this up because I'm anti-medicine, right? I don't think we should be. But if you just look at the current stats, and these are medical doctors, right? They said that right now, that the amount of suffering that's created by treating symptoms and not fixing the cause and getting people healthy again is in a death toll that is 999,936 people annually every single year. That is equivalent to having 2 jumbo jets go down every single day and 100% of the people dying on them. I mean, just kind of take it off the whole healthcare thing for just a second. If 2 massive airplanes went down in the United States and killed every single person on board, every single day, Monday to all the way through every week, how many days or how many weeks would go by before we actually change something in the aviation industry? It would be instantaneous. The whole world would rise up and say, listen, we've got to do something here. People are dying. But just think about what that means. That article, that stat, that is 100% true. It was validated. Over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles that came into being to actually make that happen. And it was irrefutable. And yet it went to nothing.
And why? Is it because they don't want you to know the truth? In America, we pride ourselves on being able to make money. Businesses, the whole point of having a business is to make money. But when that business produces drugs, and the only way they make money is to get those drugs in your hands, they'll do whatever it takes to make that money. The question I had, though, is who exactly is they? I wanted to find out, what are all the flaws in America's healthcare system? So my journey has led me to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where Robert F. Kennedy Jr. resides, and what he had to say was disturbing.
The pharmaceutical industry has an extraordinary resilience. It can get away with a lot of bad stuff because it has essentially a lock on press coverage in this country, particularly from the mainstream media, but also in a growing sense from the social media platforms as well. Pharmaceutical drug makers spend about $25 billion a year marketing their drugs to doctors, and about $9.6 billion to customers. So that gives them the capacity to really control the mainstream media. They're not just buying advertising, they're buying content. Aaron Burnett and Anderson Cooper are sponsored by Pfizer. Lester Holt, who does the NBC Nightly News, is sponsored by Merck. Do you think any of them are going to do a bad story about a Merck product? It's not going to happen. Roger Ailes told me, who was the head of Fox News, that during the non-election years, 70% of advertising revenues on evening news shows came from pharmaceutical companies, and that typically during those periods of the year, out of about 22 ads on a evening news show, that 17 of them were from pharmaceutical companies.
Works with your immune system.
It's a very, very dangerous situation in our democracy when you have these giant corporations who are able to control the channels of communication. Not only that, but if you look at the big internet platforms, Google and Facebook have separate deals with pharmaceutical companies. Google has close to over a $600 million partnership with GlaxoSmithKline. Glaxo now is in charge of mining medical information from Google. They're also trying to ban any discussion on natural health or on supplements or on things that you don't need to buy from a pharmaceutical company. They want to control healthcare in this country, and they want people buying their products.
They have seeded the FDA with their own people. Let me give you some specific examples.
You're one of the great conspiracy theorists of the world, but if everybody believed you, they would believe that pharmaceutical companies are just...
If Big Pharma controls all the free press, they manipulate doctors, they even spend billions of dollars every year to condition the public to ask their doctor for a pill. We were dealing with something that was even bigger than I had thought.
Put medicines on the market that are there to treat complicated illnesses. There is always going to be some risk.
Vioxx is here, a prescription medicine for osteoarthritis pain. With one little pill a day, Vioxx can provide serious stomach problems, such as bleeding, can occur without warning. Talk to your doctor about once daily Vioxx.
Vioxx was a headache pill that caused heart attacks. And Merck knew that it was going to kill somewhere around 500,000 people. We know that they killed 120,000 people.
Herein lies the first lesson of the Vioxx debacle, says Dr. Catherine DeAngelis. She's editor-in-chief of the Journal of the American Medical Association.
What people should learn from this is you don't believe anything, not one thing put out by a pharmaceutical company.
And they ended up paying $7 billion. So why does anybody, it requires a kind of cognitive dissonance for anybody to believe that these companies that are lying, cheating, stealing, and killing in all of their other pharmaceutical products are not doing the same thing with vaccines, and that they can be trusted in any part of their business. 1989 is the red line year, what EPA calls the gateway year, when these chronic disease epidemics began. So in 89, you saw huge amounts of mercury and aluminum and other toxic ingredients being pumped into kids in the vaccine schedule. And in 1988, the chronic disease rates among American children were 12.8%. If you were born after 1989, your chances of having a chronic disease are 54%. I didn't know anybody with food allergies, and yet my kids half of my children have anaphylactic food allergies. In the year 2000, Congress found essentially that those panels within CDC, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which mandates vaccines, is completely staffed, populated by individuals who have financial conflicts with the vaccine companies. And they're approving vaccines. They approved all 72 doses without any safety studies. That's got to tell you something. A true safety study requires a placebo. Never used a placebo. And then in 2009, the HHS Inspector General made a follow-up study and found the same thing, that 97% of the people on those committees had undisclosed conflicts. And there's been repeated studies since then, and it's very, very clear that those agencies are controlled by the industry that they're supposed to regulate. It's really kind of a Orwellian world that pharma is constructing for us.
I realized what a serious situation we're in today, and how much corruption and influence Big Pharma actually has. Their influence on drug prescription is damaging, and it's hurting so many people and taking so many lives. The biggest question that I need to answer is, what, if anything, can we do about our current situation? And I also wanted to ask the question, what can doctors do? Because if it's really big corporations that are actually behind this flawed system, can doctors rise up themselves and make a change?
The autonomy that I would like to have as a physician, with the good intent to try and get you better, I can't really practice that because the insurance companies won't allow either the premiums to be low enough or they won't cover the things that we know work.
If a person comes in and they go through all the procedures but they follow them perfectly and the person dies, there's no liability. But if they alter, even think a little different way, and I've spoken to so many medical doctors about this, they have to follow protocol, because if a person dies during protocol, they're still not liable because they did what the tribe said was right.
Some people call it, handcuffs. You feel handcuffed because you can't really move or do what it is that you want to do in the healthcare system. So in order to have the outcome of decreased pain, increased function, I can't use all the tools that I need in order to help get you better.
In medicine, the one thing that clinicians and being a doctor, that Hippocratic oath that we took, it's about compassion. It's about being able to understand why this patient is having the symptoms. Here I am seeing patients every 10 minutes on an interval because I have to meet a quota, or I have to check off a list just to get insurance payers to pay me. And that was not me. I'm the type of physician to where I take time, and if I have to spend extra time with my patients to explain things to them, I would do it. And then a lot of times when I was working with other practices, unfortunately, I was one of those individuals to where I was always there late, or I was always running behind because of that, because I took extra time at the bedside to answer questions. Just looking at the overall individual, I think that's really important. And if we can somehow come together to realize that there is a health epidemic, to realize that there is a health crisis out there, and just finding another way, a better way to just bring life back into this world, I think it'll be a much better place.
The ultimate healthcare technology is the innate intelligence that you have within you and the ability to make choices. And when you get distracted and get led astray and down a path where you change your body chemistry artificially, you will be trapped in a cycle maybe forever until you consciously fight. And I mean, it's a fight for many people to get their life back.
It's amazing how we seem to be at odds with the athlete who might take a performance-enhancing drug to perform athletically, but yet we seem to be okay with our children taking a drug to improve their performance on an academic evaluation. And so if you look at across the stats, our healthcare and our education are in a downhill spiral. There has to be a change. The time is right to change the message, to raise awareness, and take back our health.
So my mom lives in Sarasota, Florida. You know, she lost her husband. She lost 2 sons, and this is son number 3. So what type of life is that, right? So she's going through this again. She sends out this email. She does the thing any mom would do. Hey, pray for my son. And everybody's coming back, you know, bless the surgeon's hands. All this stuff, all the politically correct things you do when you get an email like that. And one person did a different email. He was actually my anatomy teacher in 10th grade. He goes, hey, listen, I need you to go see my doctor. He's a corrective care chiropractor. He's awesome. It's going to change your life. You'll be fine. And I looked at him, and I was almost insulted.
So I started to notice the word chiropractic come up. And looking back to Shiloh Harris, he had mentioned that his doctor had recommended against going to a chiropractor. Chris Zano had mentioned that he didn't think a chiropractor could help.
I've been to the best in the country. You know, I did all the tests. I've done everything they told me to do. And you want me to go see this guy who his office is out of his home. I'm like, thank you, but no thanks. And I go, listen, I tried it all. I tried everything. And when a lot of people are going through a crisis, or anybody who ever watches this, or they're going through a tough time in their life, I always tell them now, be very sensitive to the books you read, the music you hear, the movies you see, or the people who talk to you, because there might be a line, there might be a sentence, there might be a lyric that wakes you up. And when I told him I tried everything, he looked at me, he goes, you didn't try everything. He goes, because if you tried everything, you would have had your health. And I woke up. I woke up for a little bit going, oh my God, he's right. Like, I thought I tried everything, because no one ever realizes that they lose all hope. You don't realize the day you became hopeless. You don't realize the day you become a victim. And when you become hopeless and you become a victim, now your disease is what your identity is based off of. Right. So I was a victim. I became hopeless until I heard that. It woke me up enough to say, well, that's right. It's logical. Like, clearly I didn't try everything. They don't understand, and you kind of submit your health to somebody or something else.
And so what I realized was there was this stigma around chiropractic and what it is that chiropractic really does. So could that mean that another way exists, a way where patients wouldn't have to take drugs, they could lower their pain levels and eliminate their health problems? It was definitely something that should be considered, but that most people were writing off.
I went in there and he talks to me about the nervous system, the brain and the nervous system. I'm like, okay, you know, I got my degree. Yeah, brain controls everything. Yeah. So I never had x-rays in my spine. No one looked at it. I swallowed a pill that took pictures all the way down my track. They shoved cameras up my rectum to look at my colon, all that. Like, yeah, they did every other test, but no one took a picture of my spine. And so I'm looking at my spine, and your spine has to be straight up and down from front to back. And then from the side view, there's 3 beautiful arcs, especially the one in the neck. And there's a measurement that the first bone that protects your brainstem, which is actually the most important, is that controls all the autonomic process of the body, has to be a certain way. Got it? And so I get to look at my x-rays. So I'm looking at my x-rays. My spine was straight up and down, and then my lower spine, if it should be 0 degrees, straight up and down, it was 20 degrees off. You know, they call that subluxation. There was a 20-degree misalignment or subluxation in that lower spine. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that, but I didn't feel it. You know, I never had back pain. Here I'm bodybuilding, squatting, deadlifting, you know, all these things. I never had back pain, and I'm looking at this thing, and I see this massive curvature in my lower spine, and all those nerve roots in the lower spine go to your digestive and colon area.
Same area you're having the problem.
Yes. What a coincidence. And then that first bone that protects my brainstem, there was 50% pressure crushing upon my brainstem. This is the same area Christopher Reeve damaged and paralyzed himself.
When I looked at the word subluxation, I was able to break it down into its areas. So sub meaning less than, lux meaning light, ation meaning a condition of. So a subluxation is a condition of less light, a condition of less energy, if you like, than what's required. What I learned going through chiropractic school was that it was a lack of mobility, a displacement from normal of a vertebrae in the spine that was causing neurological irritation or lack of normal nervous system function. That is not good.
It's tough when you see the truth and then you have to process that truth. And he goes, listen, as long as there's damage in your nervous system, which controls all function of the body, that it's not creating the environment for the body to be able to heal and be well, because your natural state is well-being. So there's something interfering with that. And you remove that interference and correct it, then now your body will be able to be in the environment to be able to heal itself as it was always intended to. He's like, but I promise you will get well if you don't quit on yourself, no matter how long it takes. It's not the things you know that get you. It's always the things you don't know. You know, it's the blind spots that get you. So that to me was my blind spot. Do you understand the frustration there? It's like I am doing everything I need to do for health, so I thought. But I was on the wrong map because I believed health was how I looked or how I felt. That was the map I was on. And if we base our health on how we look or how we feel, you miss the colitis until they're too late. You miss the heart disease, you miss the cancer, you miss the blood pressure, you miss the diabetes, you miss all the main diseases that destroy your life because you don't feel them when they're developing until they're too late. So there I am. I'm looking at my problem.
When you're looking for root cause in a patient, I jokingly tell people you need to be that annoying 3-year-old that just says why to everything you're told. Right? Your thyroid isn't making enough hormone, so we're going to put you on medication. Right? So why isn't it making enough hormone? Well, you're at that age where sometimes it happens. Well, why does it happen at that age? Well, when you had a baby, your hormones fluctuated and that set off a cascade and now your thyroid doesn't work well. Well, why doesn't it work well? Well, it's autoimmune. Your own immune system is attacking it. Well, why would my immune system attack my thyroid? And that's usually where the discussion stops.
Everything your body does is to survive a stressor. It doesn't matter if it's a marriage, it doesn't matter if it's a bad food, it doesn't matter if it's physical trauma. It's going to do everything when it's presented in this environment to survive. There's a reason why your uterus has adapted to create endometriosis. There is a reason why your skin is cystic acne. There is a reason why you have ulcerative colitis. There is a reason why you have headaches. Okay? And thank God you had those things, because if you didn't, you have already died. As a doctor, what we have to be is listeners. The body's screaming at us. It's saying, here I am, now find me. But if you approach it from the aspect that the body is a broken down machine instead of extremely intelligent, you'll never be able to answer that question.
When you really think about what is it that they all have in common, all the sick and suffering people in our country, the one thing that they have in common more than anything else is damage to their spine and nervous system. The American Journal of Neuroradiology found in one of its studies that 96% of people have severe spinal degeneration by the age of 80. And it was the Chicago Institute of Neurosurgery that found 85% of people have spinal degeneration by the age of 50. Spinal decay and degeneration is at epidemic proportions in our society. But again, we're not hearing about this.
I get to this event, I walk in and I see this banner that says Patriot Project. And there stands Dr. Novelli and one of his colleagues, Dr. Caroline Malizia. And they're like, hey, we're chiropractors, man. And if you want, we'll adjust you. We're offering adjustments for everybody that's here at the event. And I was like, well, I said, my doctor told me that I probably shouldn't do it. And Dr. Novelli says, oh, your doctor did, huh? And I said, well, no offense. And he goes, none taken. And he said, why don't you just let me take a look at that neck? And I was like, man, I said, I'm so scared. And he said, I've been doing this almost 30 years, Shiloh. He said, let me just have a look at it. And he adjusted it, and it was like lightning through my whole body. But I had instant relief as well. I was scared to death, but he did it, and it was like that bittersweet, and he made me a believer. The health issues that I had before were a lot related to my neck and my back. But again, I was so scared to let somebody adjust my neck. Throughout the course of that weekend, he kept adjusting, making changes here and there. And I'm at a point now to where it's maintenance. I don't have to have a surgery. My surgeries now are elective. and I pray I don't have to have another surgery. I was suicidal 2 weeks before I went to that event. I was still dealing with the pain and I had no way out of it, except for opioids. I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. It was either surgery or pills. Surgery or pills. When I left that weekend and left Dr. Novelli's care and Dr. Caroline Malizia's care, I had hope in my heart. I had hope in my life again.
So Dr. Tim Novelli, please sir, stand up and let me salute you, brother.
It turns out Shiloh had discovered more than just hope for himself. He may have discovered hope for thousands of others who suffer from pain just like him. In fact, this might be the better way that we've been looking for.
We're looking at changes in brain activation patterns following the chiropractic adjustment. Basically, we monitored EEG changes before, immediately after, and then 1 week post the chiropractic adjustment. And the changes are phenomenal. We did a chiropractic adjustment group and we used sacral occipital technique. And then we did a sham, which is kind of like our placebo or our sugar pill kind of adjustment, so to speak. And then a control that received nothing. And the brain literally lights up with the chiropractic adjustment. And it doesn't with the sham and it doesn't with the control. And the cool part is it actually showed more improvement 1 week post.
For our heart to beat, for our lungs to breathe, for our stomach to digest food, for our limbs to move, your brain sends signals down the spinal cord, out the spinal nerves, to every single organ, cell, and tissue in your body. And so what can happen though over time through car accidents, through sitting all day at a desk job, through just poor posture, picking up things the wrong way, what starts to happen is our spine gets out of alignment, and what can happen then is certain joints can start to degenerate. Chiropractic care gets motion back in that area. That brings blood flow. That brings nutrients and different types of vitamins and minerals that actually start to nourish and allow that area to heal and regenerate.
Even if your vertebrae is just slightly out of alignment, that's actually changing the nervous system underneath. So it changes kind of how the neurons communicate, so the number of synapses, so from how one neuron connects with another neuron. And you think about all the kids sitting right here, that's making an impact on their brain and their nervous system. In your muscles, you have these receptors that kind of tell your body where it is in space. Even those receptors, whenever you have a slight misalignment in your spine, then they're giving misinformation. So now all of a sudden, your brain's always having to relearn every time it moves because it gets that information from your spine and says, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't match these other senses. So when your brain's trying to do too many things at one time, it can't spend time trying to remember someone's name. It can't spend time trying to focus on the professor that's at the front of the room. So that's how something as seemingly little as a subluxation in your spine can really impact kind of the global performance of how you're able to say no to Netflix and that, few seconds that it gives you to make a decision.
The research has been done, the science is beginning to be understood that you can't ignore your spine and have health. This came way before chiropractic, right? There were bone setters back in the 1800s. There were people, this dates back to hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Chiropractic just put a science and art and a philosophy to taking care of the spine and the nervous system. And it's become one of the greatest and biggest healthcare professions in the world, despite the obstacles that it's come up against.
And I said, what about chiropractic? And he said, I wouldn't recommend it.
And I was almost insulted.
She said that they very much discourage.
Some physicians are hesitant to refer patients to chiropractors or physical therapists for care. But in all the studies summarized before, there were really no serious adverse events reported, specifically when they focus on the lower back.
When I realized my mom had never been to a chiropractor, I wondered, what's her spine look like? What kind of shape was her spine and nervous system in? And I realized she had been to a lot of hospitals in our local area, and I wondered if they still had her imaging, her x-rays and MRIs and all those things. So I went back to the hospitals that she had been in, and I went up to the front desks and I asked them if I could check out her imaging, and they did. They happened to have them. They gave me stacks of imaging. And I started looking through them. There was not just x-rays in here. There were MRIs, CT scans. There was a brain scan in the stack. There had to have been hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of imaging that I had gathered from these hospitals. And it took me a while to go through the whole stack. I sat there in front of a view box and just put the images up one by one, looking for my mom's spine to see what kind of shape it must have been. But I actually got all the way through that stack of imaging and realized they didn't take one picture of my mom's spine. And that's when it hit me, that it's not medicine's job to look to the spine for the cause of disease. That's what chiropractors do. And I'm not upset with medicine. They did their job, but they never once took an x-ray of her spine, nor did they ever refer her to a chiropractor to get her spine and nervous system checked. If chiropractic was so great, why isn't anybody talking about this solution? I mean, who could be against something that's helped so many people?
I think you'll have to go back even 75 years. And chiropractic was in its infancy, but medicine saw that we might be a threat. And by then they were organized and they dominated how you were supposed to go to the doctor and get well. And here we were, the biggest threat to them, because we weren't asking for the eyes with the optometrist, the feet for the podiatrist. Chiropractic had the whole body of natural healing. And it seemed like in my dad's era and then the one generation before, everything they did was for the patient. And it seemed like traditional medicine started getting more interested in the money. And I would say there was some good doctor MDs in the 50s, but then marketing came into play. If we made this much money on this, we can make this much money. And the marketing departments started making them money. Drug companies came in, and so they had pain medications. And guess what's happened in the past 15, 20 years? Got major pain addictions. And it's been a long, hard battle, but I think there was a turning point. The defining moment, I think, was the Wilk case versus the AMA. Only time in history the most powerful lobby in the world was sued by a measly chiropractor, Wilk, Dr. Wilk.
The suit claimed that the defendants had participated for years in an illegal conspiracy to destroy the chiropractic profession. Secret internal memos surfaced in a book by an informant, which revealed that the committee's primary mission was to work covertly behind the scenes to destroy the image of chiropractic.
The American Medical Association was found guilty at the United States Supreme Court level for actually keeping chiropractic from the public that would have saved millions and millions of lives. They were told they had to pay the 4 chiropractors that made the suit against the AMA, and somewhere in the neighborhood like $400 million or something. And so the chiropractors literally said, you keep your blood money. We want you to write a letter to every single doctor admitting that chiropractic works. It saves the lives of millions of people that would otherwise be alive today if they'd have gotten the truth. And so for me, I think the problem really is not the fact that there is willfulness not to accept it. It's just that there's not enough free-floating information of truth that's not skewed.
So what's left? The whole time they're trying to discredit a natural healing profession. They called us uneducated. We had the same pre-med requirements they did, So we got the public to realize we're not uneducated. Now they're dangerous. Chiropractors are dangerous. And it took us 15, 20 years to show that our malpractice insurance is 1/15 what the average MD pays. So who's 15 times more dangerous to the patient? I get frustrated because they are powerful, and you'll be criticized by taking a stand against the medical industrial complex.
If society could just break through this stigma that we have around chiropractic, we might be able to break the reign that Big Pharma actually has on us today. That may very well be why Big Pharma doesn't want chiropractic to get out to the masses, because they don't make any money if you see a chiropractor.
So there was a great study in early 2018, and what they found, they looked in New Hampshire, they looked at people with pain, right? Non-cancer pain, and what they found was those that were given a script for an opioid, those that sought out chiropractic care, had a 55% less likely chance to fill a script for an opioid. What else was so astronomical in this study was when they looked at the cost, the charges, over 70% cost savings for those that sought out chiropractic care. So don't you think insurance companies would kind of look at that and say, wow, money talks, we're gonna save some money? Let's look at this route instead.
March 6, 2018, Journal of American Medical Association came out and showed that opioids were no more effective than NSAID drugs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And then there was a study in 2003 that came out from Spine Journal that showed that for spinal pain, chiropractic was 5 times better than NSAID drugs. You start to connect the pieces and you start to realize, man, more people need to know there are alternatives, and chiropractic has to be one of them.
What I feel like is people are waking up, people are realizing that they've been duped for the last however many decades. They are fed up with going into the doctor and always getting a script, always being handed something, and now having so many prescriptions, and it is hitting home for everybody.
And he stood his ground with that it was more of a behavioral problem, which I was not convinced of that at all. So actually left his office and went to our chiropractor and told our chiropractor what was told to us. And he just shook his head. He didn't say anything about the diagnosis, but he did say that he felt that there was something going on with Ethan in his body that he didn't like, and his body was reacting to it. He said, if you trust me, bring him to me 2 to 3 times a week, and we'll see what I can do for him.
Yeah, what did you see?
He started coming back. I want to say we probably saw the chiropractor about 4 weeks. And one day I walked in from work and I looked at him and he was back. It's very dramatic, but the seizures were less intense. They were changing. They were just different kind of every week. But after about 4 weeks of chiropractic care, when I came home, I just looked at his face and
you could tell
I knew he was fine. God put the right people in our life because, in a way, it was a blessing that Ethan had some issues at the beginning to lead us to the chiropractor. Because if we had not known about him when Ethan was having seizures, I truly believe that he would still be having problems. He would probably still be on medication. We probably still would have no answers from the doctors. They would probably be, let's just see how he does. His appetite is good. He's just all around well. He doesn't have colds like typical children do. I'm not having to take him to a doctor and get antibiotics constantly. So thank God I had somebody else to go to, because I don't know where Ethan would be. I feel like he would have continued and the seizures probably could have got worse.
The majority of all children that have come to me in 21 years having seizures stopped having seizures. Every single time they had an undetected, uncorrected subluxated vertebra in their neck, usually it's upper cervical, and they've got this disconnect on their nerve supply. How many medications is it going to take to fix a subluxated vertebra in your neck? You can try to control the brain and damage it to keep it from having seizures, which is usually what? So the person ends up like this. If he'd have stayed in a vegetative state, how long does this last? It doesn't last forever.
Ethan did amazing with the chiropractic treatment that he did. You can even see improvement in just one treatment. You know, especially with children, with medications, they tend to feel a lot of the side effects a lot faster, and they react so much easier because their bodies are so sensitive.
As much as you want to believe that it's behavioral, no way. I'm a mom. I know when there's something wrong with my kid.
I have 2 boys, and at the time I was a third quarter DC student. My 5-year-old picked up my 2-year-old, promptly dropped him on his head. Corbin went from this vibrant little 2-year-old to just this lifeless lump. He got a fever right away. We literally threw him in the car. I'm repeating CPR on the way to the hospital. And the first thing they do is they give you Motrin because he's got a fever. And of course they did a x-rays or a CT scan. So I look at it, and his atlas was like this. It's not supposed to be like that. But when I would talk to them, it's like, okay, is that normal? They're like, yeah, it's not broken. There's no fractures. Everything's fine. And I'm like, so I didn't say anything, but as soon as we got out of the hospital, I took him to my chiropractor. It was the loudest adjustment I've ever heard in my entire life. But within minutes, Corbin was back to normal. And I don't fault the medical professionals. That's all they had in their tool bag. I was just very thankful that I was in chiropractic school and had a different perspective.
Here's your pictures, here's your x-rays, and we're actually going to do a series of adjustments. And I started care. And like I said, I wish I could tell you in 1 week, everything was amazing. But guess what happened in a week?
Nothing.
Nothing. To me, this was just another hopeless, false hope thing. Because all I was told was, once we switch this drug or that drug or do this or do that, you get better. And it was all failed hope. In fact, I was just reminded of what I didn't want. I was seeing blood in the toilet bowl every single day. And it's really tough when you're trying to do something to get well and you're reminded 12 to 15 times a day, hey, still here, not working. And then 3 months later, I'm off half the medication, okay? Then 5 months later, I finally was able to get off all the medication. I was stabilizing, the blood was coming down, my weight was stabilizing. So by 3 to 5 months, I started to say, I got momentum. I was blessed and happy with, hey, I'm off no drugs. I don't care if I bleed, like any bit of results.
You might not have to have a surgery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then at 7 months, that 20-degree curvature in my spine was down to an 11. Okay, so 9 degrees of correction, which was great. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but I was off medications, there was no more blood, and my body healed itself from an incurable, terminal autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis. Incurable.
Answers that we've given for 122 years still make sense today. The body can heal itself. Designed, engineered, architecturally put together by somebody a lot smarter than that whole medical center. It can heal itself. The body is built with the best pharmacy lab within it. It can take a slice out of your hand. The body immediately, through this biocomputer here, sends new blood vessels down there. Sends macrophages that eat up the dead tissue, the bad tissue. It sends 347,000 polymorpho nuclear leukocytes, the white blood cells. Sends platelets to coagulate to where you don't bleed for the rest of your life. Doesn't do it in 1 minute, doesn't do it in 7 minutes, does it in exactly 3 minutes. So it takes that and then puts collagen, creates a lattice network that pulls those two pieces of skin together. And in 7 days, That is healed with the same fingerprint you had before you cut it. Now tell me you shouldn't rely on the body to heal itself. They think they're bigger than God because only a supreme being can do that kind of work with this biocomputer here without you even thinking. That's the healing that we work with in a natural healing profession. But the drug companies will tell you different.
Chiropractic saved my life. And I mean that with every ounce of emotion that I can have. I was suicidal. I left that event with hope. And now I live this whole health system. Chiropractors, as I've learned, have more education than so many other doctors in whatever field they're in. Chiropractors have to know a great deal more to ensure that they're taking care of their patients properly. I see a chiropractic regular, and I can tell you I am off all of my meds except for my blood pressure medicine. And my wife says it's because I like Texas barbecue still. And I guess I'll take that one. But you know what? There's some things that I'm just, not willing to give up just yet.
I don't say it's a disease. I say it was an experience. Because I went through this experience, it was really one of the greatest teachers for me, because now I found a profession that I would go back to school for now. I had an amazing practice to meet some wonderful, beautiful people, to see their lives totally changed. I got to find my purpose, to find a profession and a job and a calling in my life through this experience, to be able to add hundreds of thousands of years to hundreds of thousands of people's lives. 16 years later, I'm healthy, I'm whole, I have 2 beautiful sons. How many people are suffering out there wasn't a better way where they could have access to the true life and the true potential and the worthiness they were always created to have, but because they didn't know that other option, that other better way, they settled for a mediocre life because that's what they thought they deserved because they had no other option. Someone the other day says, "Aren't you glad that doctor saved your life?" And I said, "That doctor didn't save my life." I go, "I saved my own life."
There's a variety of methods, but the idea is to restore mobility to a joint. But then here's the catch. If we restore mobility to a joint, the patient then has a responsibility to go move. So this is it has to be a team effort. And so chiropractors become much along the lines of a life coach, if you will. And that the idea is get checked for subluxation. If you're clear, you're clear. If you're subluxated, get an adjustment so that now you can go move properly.
We need to get better at actively being healthy. We're overwhelmed because there's too much sickness and illness and there's not enough doctors. As a society, if we could promote more of a ownership and promote things that are practices where patients can live a healthier life, well, we may not have an overwhelmed clinical setting where patients are coming to see us, where we're having to feel rushed that could potentially affect the decisions that we make.
I truly believe that the system we have leads in fear. Don't do this, you're gonna have a heart attack. Don't take your cholesterol drugs, you should expect it. People lead with fear, and I wouldn't lead them with fear. I would lead them with hope.
When you make a decision out of fear and scarcity, it's never the best decision. And everybody's looking for a hero, because when you're not doing well, you're looking for someone to save you. But I challenge them to say, well, you kind of have to step up and become your own hero. And the definition of a hero is one who is idolized or admired for achievement, courage, contribution, and nobility. So everything that it takes to go through that and to go through the being scared but having the courage to go through it, it's becoming your own hero in doing that. Going through and practicing and seeing so many patients, I developed a superpower where I could see where they're at, I could see where they deserve and they're worthy of being, and I agree with the potential that I know they could have. But it's ultimately up to that person, because I'm not going to carry them to the finish line. I'm a guide, but I'm not their hero. They are.
And a lot of people just think that that's normal. That as we age, our spines are going to degenerate and you're going to get kind of lipping and spurring, you're going to get decreased motion. But, I had this 80-year-old patient that I would see, and he had fallen, so we went in and we did some x-rays. He'd been under chiropractic care for, 20, 30 years. And we took an x-ray of his spine. Oh my gosh, his spine was beautiful. His discs looked gorgeous. There was no lipping or spurring. His spine was beautiful. It kind of really solidified the fact that we kind of are makers of ourselves. It's the habits we choose to do today that are going to make an impact on what we're going to look like on down the road.
I think doctors in general have dropped the ball sharing how important the spine and nervous system actually is to live a healthy life, how important functional medicine is, how important natural health is. My question is, what could we do? What can government do? What can doctors do? And what can the ordinary person do to change this broken system we now have?
I definitely think if doctors would incorporate chiropractic care into treatments for their patients, that it would be a better way for them. It's a healthier life. It truly helps them. It's not to say that it takes away from what other doctors would be doing for their patients, but I think if people would be more open-minded, that they would see how much better their patients would do alongside of chiropractic care. We will all be getting chiropractic care just to stay well. My daughter also goes. She's been doing a lot better with allergies. It helps me just get through every day, pretty much, being with patients all day, and it just makes a difference in our whole life for all of us.
There are some changes in the younger medical doctor that knows he's not going to be filthy rich. They finally are rewarded for keeping people well, not putting them in the hospital, not having that third MRI. Started teaching them with each chronic disease how you prevent it. So there's a movement towards rewarding health instead of paying for disease. And I don't care who gets the credit if that patient lives to be 100 years old and dies with a smile on their face. And I've seen it. I've been there.
I'm so thankful that Dr. Tabor Smith has led the charge with spinal hygiene and how important spinal hygiene is, just like our teeth. Like, we would never foresee not having our children brush their teeth when they're really young. Well, your child's spine is so much more important than even their teeth.
Make sure you get your spine and nervous system checked by a chiropractor on a regular basis. I don't want to hear the statement anymore, "Why didn't anybody tell me?" Don't keep it to yourself. Tell everybody. Let's create a healthier planet together.
It would be great to see government step up and actually start to let people start to live better quality lives. Because when these people start taking more proactive measures for their health, and we get these people off of abusing medicine and out of the pharmaceutical funnel, then what's going to happen is this is going to be great for our economy. What needs to happen is government needs to wake up and look at taking care of the people who can afford organic food, chiropractic services, boutique gyms. We need to start subsidizing these things, let these people live the best quality life for themselves and their family. That would boost the economy.
Within the chiropractic community, we don't have money from Big Pharma because obviously we're a non-drug and non-surgical profession, and money talks in Washington, D.C. However, I saw something within the last 2 years when I went in that they listened, because all of a sudden we started talking about the opioid epidemic, and those legislators, they understand what is going on, and they know there's an issue because that's their constituents. And so for the first time ever in those 20 years, it's been the last 2 years when I showed up, that I actually had my state representative from Michigan look at me and said, "You're right. What do we need to do? Because this is a problem." And whether it's in my small community or somebody else's small community, this is happening if you just open up your ears and listen.
Study out shows there may be gross underreporting of opioid-related deaths.
Series on the opioid epidemic with a look at
it's not going to happen any longer.
Recent
studies showing that chiropractic care cuts down on the use of opiate
There should be
pain
3 curves: a forward curve in the neck, a back curve in the mid back, and then there's this other forward curve in the low back.
In this ongoing addiction crisis, it's time for an adjustment.
Everyone in our healthcare community is going to have to come together and do their part.
right. Good job. Can I get some high fives now?
Lower back is still really bothering me though.
Yeah, I can see. Okay, on your side for me.
I want quality of life, and I want to be here for as long as I can to build that legacy for my family. I went into that concept with just about everything I've done. If I can save one person with this, and right now I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the person that's watching this movie. Your life is worth it. Make the change and live a better life. It's all right there in front of you, waiting for you to come take it.
And I truly believe one of the beautiful things about chiropractic is it leads with hope. What is the expectation if you actually did this, if you actually lived like this? You know, what if? I mean, those two words, what if, I believe it could change the entire world. What if your children and you got adjusted regularly? Just think about that for a second. What if your kids and you got adjusted to remain subluxation free from now on? What if you did that? What could the possibility be? And I can tell you, after 32,000 people back here, and 5 continents, and 4 U.S. Olympic teams, and I can tell you, my personal experience for the families that do that, they're off medications. They're not making medical visits. They're not paying off medical bills that they had because something happened. And right now, if you're watching this film and you're questioning, man, is this maybe something, I almost don't want to get my hopes up again? Let me be very clear. I didn't say it was a magic trick. I didn't say there was a wand where you just click and everything goes away. But there's a better way. And all it takes is one little step.
As I reached the end of this journey, I started to think, what if my mom had had her spine and nervous system checked? What if she had been told she should visit a chiropractor? Maybe it wouldn't have been a magic bullet that just extended her life greatly, but what if it would have improved her life? What if she didn't have to take as many medications as she did? What if it just gave her another year? What's a year of life worth? What if it just improved the quality of her life? What would that be worth? I've learned so much on this journey, but the single most important thing that I've learned is that no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're suffering from, there's always hope. There's always a better way.
If I could talk to every single person on the planet about this one topic, and I had the opportunity, one shot to get somebody, to get a whole world to listen to me, I would use 2 words. What if?
Take a chance and wait. Stay light as a feather, a feather. Shake away the weight. Cut what makes you tethered, tethered. Trust when you fall in every risk you take. Knowing redemption's always on its way. Let all the courage in you start to wake. Unafraid, 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 I'm unafraid. Every second I'm raising up higher. Unafraid, I'm unafraid. open your gaze, hold truth as a treasure, treasure. Trust when you fall in every risk you take, knowing redemption's always on its way. Let all the courage in you start to wake. Unafraid, unafraid.